Okay, so I was lucky enough to get the previous talk right before my talk so that you guys now have a bit more of an understanding of what solo staking is. But I have definitely to tell you more, and I have a bit more optimism here because the end of the last talk was about, okay, the recent EIPs and stuff like that might theoretically reduce the number of solo stakers. Well, they do. But now let's try to dig a bit deeper. Let's try to figure out why this talk should instead be called the Ethereum home staking renaissance, and what is the situation, what we can do about it. First of all, let's yet again figure out who are the solo stakers, but with a more precise and detailed approach. To do that, we need to take a look at Ethereum staking mechanism at its core, so that for those of you who don't know, you will have a clear understanding of how it works. Ethereum staking mechanism is a bit not like the other staking mechanisms. The key difference here is that the validator size, or the amount of stake at the base layer, is fixed, and it is 32 ETH. Yes, we all know that with the recent EIP, which will go live relatively soon, this number would now become variable from 32 to 2048, but still, the validator is more or less atomic, and it has more or less fixed value of ETH that should be allocated, with the minimum of 32 ETH. So users have to lock 32 ETH to the network, and in exchange, get the ability to run a validator and secure the network, make it better, and get rewards. Fine, that's the Ethereum staking in a nutshell. So, from this scheme, we can do a naive conclusion. The more people stake, the better, the more decentralization, the better for Ethereum, right? Well, not actually, because there's a lot of additional questions that we do need to answer to figure out if it's so or not. First of all, the first question that we do need to answer is, are these users independent? So as you can see from the scheme, there's no requirement for one user to have only one validator. And there's no requirements for the user to be the same user who supplies the stake and who runs validators. So the next question is, who actually runs validators? And there's more, where the validators are located, what clients are used, and so on and so forth. So even though the Ethereum staking mechanism might seem simple, and we might draw a conclusion that the more people stake, the better for Ethereum, it is actually not that. And to tackle this issue and to answer these questions, we need to come up with some sort of classification of the stakers. And within a previous talk, we saw the simplest classification, which is solo stakers, stakers with decentralized staking protocols, and stakers with centralized exchanges. However, the picture is a bit more diverse here. Thanks to efforts of eStaker, who have made this wonderful classification about a year and a half ago, we can do a deeper dive and a quicker look on what types of solo stakers do we have. For some reason, they have excluded stakers on centralized exchanges, probably because they ignore such type of staking and because they are about pure ETH. But anyway, we can include them at the bottom. So the first type of stakers that we have, and the most important one for Ethereum, is definitely solo stakers. And the gist of a solo staker is that you have all of the ETH is yours. You run validators on your own, you control configuration, you choose the clients and stuff like that, and there's no requirements on where you run them. I mean, you can run them at home, you can run them using virtual machines, but you should be the owner of the funds and the owner of the validator. This is called solo staking. Wonderful, and this is the most important thing. And as we heard from the previous talk, there's a high chances of solo staking, number of solo stakers reducing. And yeah, we need to talk about it today a bit. So the next type, home stakers. The main difference of a home staker compared to a solo staker is that there's no requirement that the whole capital of a validator is actually owned by the home staker. And there's a more stricter requirement that home stakers should indeed run validators from home. So not using virtual machines, not using public clouds, but from home. However, presumably not with the whole capital provided by them. Then we have remote stakers, which is basically the same as home stakers, but they are using some virtual machines, or some commercial hardware or software. And then we have three types at the bottom, which is managed stakers, where you still provide some part of the validator bond, but you do not have control over how the validators are operated. The good example here is all nodes, where you can join and say, hey, I want to run a rocket pool validator. Wonderful. But you will have no control over which clients are used and over how your validator is operated. You will only supply the collateral, and all nodes will do all this shit for you. And this is called managed stakers. So professional operators, this is the typical one, Figment, Kiln, P2P, many more. The key thing for them is they do not operate their own funds. They simply operate the whole delegated stake, and they do it in any way they want. And the last here in the table, liquid stakers, which is the largest category of stakers, is those who stake with liquid staking protocols, no matter centralized or decentralized. And in this case, they do not have control over the validators. They do not have control over location. The only thing they can do is they can select liquid staking provider and indirectly affect the situation on the network. OK, so what we've learned today. We have three types of independent stakers, and the solo stakers are the best and the most desirable for Ethereum. But are there enough solo stakers? And again, as you've seen on the previous talk, the estimation was like 2.5% of the network. But the thing is, we don't know. There's a bunch of different researchers, and some say that there's like 20K home and solo stakers, or 20K solo stakers. Some say there is 5 of them. The problem is that Ethereum network is designed in a way that you cannot know for sure from the network data who is the actual operator of this or that validator. And the next thing here is that this number is getting lower. So according to estimations, if we look at the early researches at Ethereum Genesis, the number of solo stakers was higher. Now it's getting reduced, and it's also very inaccurate. So what's the problem here? The problem here is that it is hard to be solo staker. And again, as you've heard from the previous talk, I'm super happy that we had it. To be a solo staker, you basically need to face all the complexity of Ethereum staking and with like no benefits at all, except for the fact that you own your funds. You need 32 ETH for each validator. So if you have 40 ETH, you will not be able to spin up 1.1 validator. No, you will still have only one validator, and you need to have additional 32 ETH for the other one. You need to have hardware. You need to face the reality where you get penalized for like every 7 minutes being offline, because every 7 minutes your validator have to submit a single attestation, and if you miss the attestation, you get penalized. You also get uneven rewards. You do not get any additional benefits. So being solo staker, it's like being Pablo in this picture. Can Ethereum help here? Because we learned that solo stakers are super important for Ethereum. Why would not Ethereum jump in and help? Well, because it cannot. Because Ethereum had chosen a very complicated path of neutrality, when the network itself as a base layer is neutral for all, for users, for stakers, no matter who they are, no matter where they are. It means that even though there are a bunch of researchers that say that, okay, there is a possibility that this or that thing might be improved for solo stakers, all of them are either very tiny or not feasible at all. So now we are fully depressed. We know that the number of solo stakers is decreasing. We know that it is hard to be solo staker, and at the same time, we know that solo stakers is probably one of the most important categories for Ethereum. However, as we learned from the picture provided by Eve Staker, there's another category called home stakers, which is right below solo stakers with the two main differences. The first one, not the whole capital is owned by a home staker, which is slightly worse than solo staker. But the second one is better, because home stakers, they do have to run validators from home. And this is why the renaissance in Ethereum solo staking is actually not the renaissance in Ethereum solo staking, but in home staking, in the second best category of stakers for Ethereum. And it all comes from the protocols. Because staking protocols, unlike base layer of Ethereum, unlike underlying network, they are not required to be neutral. They can and should be opinionated. They can identify, for example, independent stakers, maybe home stakers, maybe just independent persons, and offer them some specific benefits, unlike the base network, because base network cannot give you specific benefits on the opinionated decision of your identification, no. But protocols can. What protocols can do as well, they can ease the process overall, because again, staking with Ethereum, native staking, as you all know, there's no blimmin' UI to do the interactions with native staking. You should use the CLI tool to do native staking, which is crazy, because with liquid staking protocols, you simply you connect your wallet, go to UI, and do all the staking. Wonderful. So protocols can do the same, but for home staking. They can offer this smooth and pooled rewards, because again, as we know from the mechanics of how Ethereum rewards work, the only duty that you do on a day-by-day basis is attestations. And even though attestations is a significant portion of the rewards, they are meaningfully lower than, for example, rewards for the block proposals or for sync committee participation. And both block proposers and sync committee participants are selected using RANDAO, so you never know beforehand would you produce blocks or not. And with staking protocols where you have multiple stakers working together, multiple home stakers working together, you can smoothen this pool. And there's much more cool things that staking protocols can offer on top. And the best thing here is that there's only one Ethereum base layer. Only one. But there can be tons of protocols on top of it. And we already know that there are many staking protocols. And given that each and every protocol can and should be opinionated, they can and should be opinionated in a different ways, meaning that home stakers will now have the ability to choose between which protocol they are willing to use, which protocol they think is better for them, and so on. One of the great examples of home staking and why I believe we are entering the Renaissance stage is community staking module, for sure developed by Lido and myself as well. Because before community staking module and before the end of year 2024, there has been only few home staking solutions on the market, with the most famous one being Rocket Pool, however, still not super accessible. And with the introduction of the community staking module, Lido, as the largest staking provider, steps into the home staking territory, allowing people to become home stakers. And I believe that the other protocols should follow, and we should have more options. To give you the gist of why community staking module is important and why it is some form of a revolution here, is, first of all, since its launch 3 months ago, more than 150 new home stakers, people who have never been validating Ethereum, who had never been running validators for Ethereum before, had joined Ethereum, and Lido as well. You only need 1.3 ETH to spin up a validator. It means that the reduction from 32 to 1.3 is extremely significant, which makes home staking way more accessible. You no longer have this entry barrier, and even if we take a look at the Rocket Pool, which is the main competitor of community staking module, you will see that right now you still need 8 ETH to participate in Rocket Pool. They are actively working on reduction of this number to 4 ETH and then maybe even lower, which is amazing for home stakers, and I hope that they will do it soon, but so far 1.3 the best thing. And there's also a potential for increased rewards. And this is the topic that has been mentioned in the previous talk, that if you are solo staking, you do not have access to smooth rewards, and you do not have access to rewards that are somehow higher than with liquid staking. So what community staking module offers is the potential for up to 2.4 times more rewards, because you get full rewards on your principal, on your 1.3 ETH, and then you get a share of rewards on the delegated part, which really makes home staking reasonable and appealing, because you need to do extra duty, you need to run a validator, unlike with liquid staking. But at the same time, you get more rewards. And there's many more things. And the coolest thing about CSM is literally today in 6 hours, I'm not quite sure, at 3 p.m. today, 4 p.m. today, Community staking module will exit its early adoption phase and will finally become fully permissionless. So before that, right now, not all of you can join because it's still in the mainnet beta. But the transition from the mainnet beta, from the early adoption stage, would happen today at 4 p.m. So stay tuned, and maybe on the weekend you will decide to become home staker. But my idea here was not to show you CSM, but to give you the overview of the space of Ethereum staking, of the types of Ethereum stakers, and to introduce home staking to you as the great alternative to solo staking, which, as we learned, solo staking would inevitably decrease and is not like super attractive unless you really want to own your ETH. While home staking is also a great alternative here, and I believe that home staking, first of all, is fun. I'm personally a home staker. I do have this wonderful machine at home under my TV, and I spent absolutely amazing couple weeks playing with the configuration, selecting the best clients, optimizing connection and stuff like that. I'm a bit of a technical person, for sure, but even for non-technical persons, it might be super fun, especially when you chat with people, when you try to figure out like what would be the best configuration, how can I improve here? But at the same time, there's no need to do like absolutely best because of the way how the home staking solutions are designed, because they allow for performance leeway and stuff like that, so they offer alternative penalty system. But anyway, it's fun. It is super easy because if you don't want to dive into particular settings like I do, you can just plug in your dApp node, do a couple clicks on a UI, which is very human readable and easy to use, and then you have your setup ready. You just need to wait for the nodes to synchronize with the network, and then you can start participating, and then you can become home staker within like 10 clicks in total. So it's super simple. Home staking is definitely rewarding. I mean, 2.4 times multiplier on Ethereum staking APR is definitely not a joke. There are solutions on the market, for sure, somewhere at the far away corners of L2s where you can get Ethereum APR of like 15% or stuff like that. But you should keep in mind that the further you go, the more protocols are involved into this wonderful scheme, the more risk you are taking. And with home staking, the only risk you are taking is the same risk as with any liquid staking protocol, as with the liquid staking protocol you are interacting with, plus slashing risk. But slashing risk is fully controlled by you because you are the one who runs validators. And for sure, home staking is good for Ethereum because it makes Ethereum way more decentralized. It makes Ethereum secure. And overall, home staking is cool. So my call to action for you today, guys, is double-sided. If you are just in Ethereum space and you just want Ethereum to be cooler and better, go and become home staker. I mean, I'm serious. If you have 1.3 ETH, or I mean, let's say 5 ETH to make it more or less viable in terms of rewards, go and become home staker. If you're a developer and you are working, or you know someone who is working with staking protocols, and there's no home staking in their protocol, go and tell them to add home staking. Lido did it. It means that each and every protocol can do it and should do it if they are Ethereum aligned. And the final thought, as I've mentioned before, protocols can identify people and can be opinionated. And one of the ways to say that this or that address belongs to an individual is proof of attendance. So if you ever like to get benefits for identified individuals, go scan the QR code and mint a simple auth, which will be your proof of attendance, which will further be used to classify you as an individual, which will be one of the factors that can be used to classify you as individual. And that's it. Go home stake, go build home staking. Let's make Ethereum more decentralized. Thank you.
Thank you. If you guys have any questions, yeah, 2 questions. Be quick. Thank you.
I adore this microphone.
How does Lido make money from me being a home staker, and what's the cut roughly?
Yeah, so the scheme, how LiDAR as a protocol makes revenue, no matter from home stakers or from professional operators, is essentially the same. So there's a 10% revenue decrease or like staking rewards cut that is taken by LiDAR, and then this 10% are split between professional operators and LiDAR, between home stakers and LiDAR. For professional operators, the split is 5-5. For home stakers, the split is 6-4. 6 goes to home stakers.
Another one.
Undershot.
Thanks. I was wondering about the penalties of a home staker when you have outages. Are they exactly the same, or is there any, let's say, smoothing, softening here?
Yes, that's a great question. As I've mentioned, the native system of Ethereum is pretty rough, I would say, in terms of penalties, and because it does not include the pooling aspect. So you can use pooling aspect for two things. You can use pooling aspect to distribute rewards, but at the same time, you can use the pooling aspect to somehow distribute penalties, right? So within community staking module, the approach that has been taken is radically different from what Ethereum network does. So what community staking module does is it measures the performance relative to the network average performance at the moment only in terms of attestations, not including block proposals and sync committee, but it will be changed soon. And then if your performance is above the network average minus performance leeway, which is currently 5%, which is enormous, you get full socialized rewards, meaning that not only your rewards, but also your penalties are socialized with the others. But if you drop below this threshold, which means that you did significantly bad, you've been offline for, let's say, 3 days in a month, or you haven't been online at all, you get 0, and even if your validator actually acquired some rewards, they will be socialized among well performers. So this is the gist of how the reward system and penalty system works. Okay, thank you.